whiz through a bit of information about, I guess, sort of our approach to climate education and why we're promoting EcoSchools and what we see as the benefits of EcoSchools, and then have a bit more time to actually look at opportunities and challenges of doing that in secondary schools and colleges in the borough. And then there was going to be some breakout rooms, but it might not be necessary. So hopefully you can all see that. Yeah, so the way we're looking at climate education and very much linked to what Suntrap offers as well, it's seeing that we're trying to support teachers and schools to make it as part of the formal education. Actions and experiences which can come at schools, but also comes from visiting places like Suntrap. And then the EcoSchools, or the Green Ambassadors and climate leadership work that Emily's working on, is a sort of for the students that want to get more involved with it, essentially. But all of those overlap, and they can all take place and all need to sort of sit within the context of the school site and the school community. And as we're recognising more and more with climate change, also references to mental health and well-being. So within all that, I certainly say for sort of the teachers that think it's just about science or it's just about geography, there's so much more within the possibilities of climate education action that it can be related to so many of different subjects and projects, etc. What we see as the outcomes and long-term benefits of climate education is multifaceted, and for everyone involved, teachers and staff included, we want to be building up that understanding for sustainable behaviour and just general benefits for the climate and future. But for the school building itself, there's the carbon reduction, what I call kind of like the hard climate bit, the bit that's very measurable. And reducing those carbon emissions is something that as a council we're also really committed to doing. And then a very sort of standard outcome of schools as we're looking towards careers. And there are plenty of growing opportunities in the green economy. But also it doesn't have to be about that. It can just be about that, like caring for the future side of things. So again, when I've been talking to different teachers of different subjects about like what does this climate learning mean and how does it relate as well to the EcoSchools topics, is that climate change, when we're talking about climate change, it's generally sort of there within the science and facts, like and the sort of the carbon literacy and sort of the knowledge of climate change. But if we're talking climate emergency and climate crisis, that's straight away getting us thinking about the people and the emotions and the experiences. And that's where we want to be bringing in like arts, subjects, humanities, and different work you can be doing at school. And then, I mean, this diagram is just to show there's so many different facets to climate learning. And it's really important that we don't pigeonhole it in one part of education. And something we can do at schools. We're very good at that, thinking about people, local communities, what individual students are doing. And certainly it's that bit of it that sits better in primary school as well. But hopefully as students go through secondary school, we can also start thinking more broadly about and things like the policy changes and the global perspective on that. And where we've got students that are maybe knife crime is more pertinent issue to them, I think that's where the sort of the social justice, climate racism conversations perhaps more engaging than talking about saving, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right animal. I used koalas the other day, you know, and something just pops into your head and it's the first thing you say, why am I talking about saving koalas? But so that for the EcoSchools, which sort of fits into the different areas of delivery, we'll focus on this partly because it's the largest environmental education programme in the world. So students taking part in this in the UK are doing it alongside students all around the world. As it states there, nearly 20,000 schools got a green flag in 2020. So it's sort of demonstrable, and it's part of like joining a big movement of students and young people. And the structure sort of proved to work. It's proved that it's something that schools find is achievable to work through the steps. So the standardized format for EcoSchools is that there's 7 steps to this framework. And once you've signed up and registered, you get your login, you can start working and inputting evidence for step 1 straight away. And I'll show you another diagram in a moment, but the steps overlap. So you sort of be working on multiple steps at the same time. A key part of the steps is choosing 3 of 10 topics to work on in a given year. And then if you're doing it next year, the next cohort might pick another 3 topics. You're then actually sort of building up the sustainability work at the school, or they might want to sort of continue one of the projects that's started by a previous peer group. And there's the questions, on the EcoSchools website, there's the questions shown in advance that you'll need to answer when you submit your evidence, but they expect a different level of detail, whether you're an early years setting or a college, but they're essentially the same process, depending on what year you're on, what year you're in. As soon as it's after the Easter holidays, the platform will be open for you to apply for the green flag. You can only apply if you've got data in for these 7 steps, and then they will assess online, and there's a point system. Hang on, no, it's not there. There is a point system for each of those steps, so you have to reach 100 points across the 7 steps to be awarded your green flag. I wanted to post, I'm going to post the link into the, no. I'll just have a little look at what those topics are. And sorry, do just ask questions as we go along if you need to. So if you follow that link, this is the 10 topics that students are meant to pick 3 from after doing a bit of an audit and a discussion, deciding together which topics they want to work on. But I want to ask yourselves, of those 3 topics, which do you think are the most influential or the most important for trying to reduce carbon emissions? So essentially the ones that are most linked to reducing climate change.
Transport is the first one that jumps out at me to reduce climate change.
That's an important one. I also think transport's quite a good topic in Waltham's Forest.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said about it.
Energy, very important. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly.
I was going to ask a question, if that's okay. I was
Please
wondering,
do.
is there anything on the, you said there were 19,799 schools. Is there a breakdown as to whether most of those are primary or secondary or independent, or what type of schools they might be?
I've got that data from the EcoSchools International site. I can have a little investigate, or probably more relevant to look at get the breakdown for UK.
Yeah.
The EcoSchools team in England are pretty small, but they are very approachable. So I could ask them. Certainly based on the case studies on the EcoSchools UK website, I think there's a lot more primary schools than secondary and colleges taking part. There's not necessarily there's no reason that needs to be the case. I'm just sure it's because primary schools find it easier to make the time for it. But there's no reason that the learning that that is sort of gained through doing the programme isn't worthy of doing at secondary school and college level.
Thanks.
So, I mean, the reason I asked this question is because from the climate action perspective, we're really trying to encourage schools to take up the topics that are going to have the biggest impact on reducing carbon emissions or greenhouse gas emissions. But we also recognise they're not necessarily the ones that students are going to be sort of most excited about picking or kind of feel that are most within their reach to actually do anything about. And so for that reason, I'm really keen to support schools where possible. And the offer is there that I can come in and do an introductory session with an eco team or even with teachers to try and help them get on board with like teaching and bringing those subjects, those topics into lessons, or working out how they can take action on those topics. But we know like the litter, oceans, school grounds tend to be the most popular and sort of feel like they're accessible topics for students to do. I'm trying to move my slide. So this pie chart, just to give you a bit of an answer to the question of which ones are most relevant. This is data from 2004, but it won't have changed significantly. I think the buildings proportion has come down because energy has increased in efficiency a fair amount in the last 15 years. But still, like even across the whole of Waltham Forest, buildings is a very significant part of our carbon footprint. So any action we can take to reduce energy consumption, insulation, etc., and reduce the emissions around buildings is really beneficial. Procurement includes food, because actually our diets, the food we eat, where we get it from, that's a big part of our day-to-day carbon footprint. Travel for schools, especially across this borough. I think we've seen data about like, I'm really bad at remembering stats. It's maybe like couldn't be 1 in 7 miles is the school run. I won't try and quote figures, I can't remember, but a lot of miles are involved in like getting kids to school, and waste, which is quite an exciting topic for students. Litter picking, waste and recycling are things I think is comfortable, but it's actually a very small proportion of our carbon footprint. So not one to focus on if you're actually trying to sort of guide students into doing stuff around climate change. So as I mentioned, there's these 7 steps to achieve the EcoSchools. One of the steps is around making sure some of the topics get taught in lessons. And then normally the evidence is by creating a display or some sort of photographs of work that the students have done. I mean, and this is something that we're really trying to emphasise in Waltham Forest, that we don't just want it to be an eco committee that does all of this action. We want them to be bothering their teachers to get it into lessons where possible, and different sorts of lessons or cross-curricular projects. Oh, bear with me, someone's trying to join. Chat amongst yourselves. I'm just going to quickly send them the link. Hi, Paul.
Hi,
Right.
sorry, I was having real problems there.
So yeah, I think it was a bit of a way down our email thread. Sorry about that.
That's right.
So I'm just going a bit over about the sort of process of EcoSchools, and I'll open it up to a bit more of a discussion about what opportunities there are and what challenges there are for secondary schools and colleges shortly. So this diagram showing the EcoSchools timetable. So really at this point in the year, you could still complete an EcoSchools green flag this academic year, but by the time it gets to half term, February half term, it's a bit of a struggle. Unless you've already got other projects on the go that you're realizing, well, actually, we're ticking the boxes for EcoSchools as well, and the students would feel really proud of being able to get that green flag, which is the case in quite a lot of schools. Like, as you're saying, Delith, you've already got a green team. They may well be doing a lot of this work already. They just haven't set it up to do it as an EcoSchools project. And that shows, like, from summer term, you can start applying for your green flag. Probably the most important bit of information of the session is that it's £200 to apply for a green flag, but for this academic year and next academic year, Waltham Forest Council have funding to cover the application fees. Unfortunately, this year schools are going to have to pay online while they do their application, and then they'll be able to invoice the council. So I'd like, if you are going to apply, let me know and I'll make sure you can invoice us sort of swiftly, and that's all set up for you. Next year, we should be able to pay ahead for a whole kind of block of schools, and then the schools will just be able to apply under a certain code, but that's not going to be in place this year. But yeah, that's a sort of the offer from the council to sort of, because it's a shame really when students put a lot of work into it, do all the steps, and then that final hurdle of £200 to apply is what prevents them getting the flag. So I thought I would cover a few tips that I've gathered from other teachers and from some conversation with a teacher from Norlington School last week. But also this is an opportunity for anyone else on the call to chip in with tips you've got, or sort of suggestions what you're working on as well. I've sort of just put some tips under the title of enrichment and lessons, because we were discussing, like, for some schools I know it's really important that they make links with curriculum or specific lessons that the students are going to be doing, and then for other schools it's seeing it as an important part of enrichment and giving school and students sort of extracurricular employability skills, whatever they sort of, how you want to frame it, but sort of you can frame it in whichever way, and it's a very flexible program because you can make it work for whatever the school sort of agenda is, I guess. Yeah, some of the tips we're really trying to make sure you can have those eco team meetings in a form time or something within the school day that sort of enables a bit of regularity for them, especially if they're working on things like the energy topic, or even the one that's sort of related to waste and food, get them talking to catering, but trying to get them talking to people who are professional at the school, that have opportunities to make real changes, so like the school business manager. And that way students can see they really are going to have influence, they're going to make changes that might sustain. I think that's sort of a really rewarding part of it. Using outdoor space where possible. So again, it's using as opportunities for connecting with nature, connecting for making real changes. Exploring with other teachers what opportunities there are through off timetable days, or Norlington School had a learning outside the box day that they were using for the Eco Club as well, or student-led action days where the Eco team can be running a series of lessons, potentially even for other teachers or for other students, etc. So there's lots of different opportunities in that. The picture there isn't a Waltham Forest school, but it's an EcoSchools case study, and they have a whole series of case studies on their website. But they're talking about how the Eco team collaborated with the Social Enterprise Club to run a kind of Dragon's Den style fundraiser. I can't quite remember the details, but so that helps sort of them also to see doing green things as part of enterprise or as part of other activities that they're interested in, or as part of careers. And then some suggestions of sort of classroom opportunities. This isn't sort of lesson specific, but ideas were getting the Eco team to brief staff on the topics they've chosen to do and why. So whether that's a written briefing or a verbal briefing, it's giving them the sort of ownership of those topics and it's having to explain why they're important. Linking it into the SMSC framework or however your school's implementing that is a good way of getting students to sort of see particularly climate emergency as about more than the science. It's about the human stories. There's a lot of dilemmas and hard choices to be made. At Norlington, the eco team, after coming to the debate panel discussion at the town hall in November, they went back and did lessons supported for the year 7s. So sort of different opportunities to empower the students that are in that eco group to take it into the classroom. And I will got one more slide on some specifics. So part of one of the 7 steps is sort of promoting, communicating, and sort of celebrating what the eco team has done. Case studies or displays are a good way of doing this. This is actually from a program called Green Schools Project. They have done lots of work with schools to support them to really take the eco schools up to the next level, to be honest. And they also run something called Zero Carbon Schools, but this just sort of highlights, I don't know if you can see it big enough, it's tiny on my screen, because I've also got your faces, comments, and something else going on, but this breaks it down into money saving through energy. So it shows actually if you can nudge them towards that energy saving topic to start with, you've got potentials for big carbon saving and maybe even big financial savings if they work with a school business manager. And there's nothing young people like more than kind of feeling like they've worked out how to save some money. I'll finish it on that slide. That was sort of another school doing modelling, and I was saying this isn't the school grounds, this is like the local community, but there are other examples where they've then kind of made a model of the school in the future, but labelling it with all the changes they want to make and what the topics they're going to act on, how they're going to help make improvements. So a model is a nice way of visualising it for everyone. I think as we're a small group, rather than going into breakout rooms, I can just have a bit more of a conversation. But Paul, you've just turned your camera off. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'll talk to you later. Sorry, I just had someone come to my office. Yeah, so I'm Paul Hobbs. I'm one of the assistant heads at Willerfield School. One of my responsibilities is sustainability.
Cool. And are you running the EcoSchools programme or any other sort of environmental or sustainability work with students?
We're in early stages. I mean, I was joining this more to look for ideas about how to get it off the ground. Because to be honest, the way things have been the last few months, in terms of staffing and students, it's just been impossible to get anything off the ground. I'm sure other colleagues have found it difficult also. So I was just looking forward to looking at some ideas and talking to other people about things we could do and take it to the next stage.
I don't know if either of the other teachers on board today have suggestions. I know, Miss Williams, you're not running your green team, are you? But do you know what the model is or how they got it going at the school?
Well, they got it going because they introduced recycling bins into the classrooms. This was pre-COVID. They introduced them, but they realised that the cleaners wouldn't take them as part of the recycling. So the head of lower school set up the green team, and they just get they stay at the end of school. They go around, take a building each day. They take the cycling out, and they just get fast track entry to lunch or something as part of it to say thank you. And it's quite efficient. There's quite a big group of year 9s who do it, but it's just looking for more opportunities to set up things like that. We've got a lot of space around the school site that is currently just unused. That could be nice as to to encourage like more pollinators to come back, and like we're right on the edge of the forest as well, so we probably get some quite nice biodiversity around here. So it'd be nice to do some actual proper teaching and looking around that really.
One of the teachers at Leighton has set up a conservation pathway. It's called, because we've got a small garden area on the field adjacent to Peterborough Road, and that's been developed. There's now bee hives there, a small pond, and a few other bits and pieces, a shed, and different types of habitat. And yeah, it's gone fairly well. We did quite a lot of things pre-pandemic. Pandemic sort of brought them to a shuddering halt, unfortunately, because we had an environmental audit of the college done by a company came in and did the audit, and we're just going back to. We've got a meeting about it on the 28th of February, actually, to address where we go from here, and hopefully put a bit more structure on our plans of what to do next, because there was a lot of recommendations came out of that audit in terms of energy use. So we've changed to a green tariff, for example, now, and save paper, a lot of savings in paper as well. So some positive things, a lot of them structural, not necessarily involving students, and that's what we want to do next, is get more of a student involvement.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask. And also, Emily and Kerry, feel free to chip in at any point, but presumably none of your schools or colleges is the teacher leading on sustainability given extra time for planning, setting these things up. No, this is, and this is common, this is the same across all the schools, secondary and primary, that we're speaking to. And this is why, alongside trying to support schools to start the EcoSchools programme or some sort of equivalent, we're also going to be trying to work with senior leaders and governors on this sort of implement this greener governance campaign, which is about making sure there's an eco lead or more than one, and they're actually somehow given time. I mean, the feedback I was getting last week from primary school teachers, like, could you get some cover so we can do some planning? Could we do a planning day at the town hall and get cover? That's sort of an ideal that we need to be working to, because I think the stumbling block time after time is the time for people to do the planning, and the need for that teacher, like the person who's putting in the beehives, the person who's decided to set up the eco club, without their energy and sort of commitment to it, it doesn't get started. And then if they have other workload sort of commitment priority shift, those projects get dropped, which is why it needs to be written into schools action planning. I know this isn't an answer, Paul, that's going to get you a solution very quickly, and what I'm trying to offer from the council side of things at the moment is to be able to come in and do a session with an eco team to get their sort of ball rolling on a topic that they're interested in, or perhaps they've picked their topics and the lead teacher recognises that they don't know a whole lot about sustainable transport or whatever it is, and I can come in and sort of work with the students on like making their own little action plan, or even just bringing a bit of sort of whether they want to make some more social links around that subject and like think about behaviour change, or whether they just want to know a bit more about the science. I can have a conversation and create a session for them, and or do a session with staff to try and increase the staff's confidence to talk about those topics, or find opportunities in lessons to teach about these things. I mean, there are a lot of resources out there, I'm aware, and something I've been discussing with Emily and Helen at Suntrap is the best way to share resources with schools. So we're adding more things onto the Suntrap website under the EcoSchools section. At the moment, I'm creating a page for every topic for primary schools. I will quickly share, well, or even slowly share with you a draft of something I'm making potentially for secondary schools. But aware that with secondary schools, there's so many different ways things can be taken and things can be done within every different subject. It's quite hard to sort of decide what to share. Not that is the EcoSchools. I mean, the EcoSchools website has ideas. I've actually just discovered today EcoSchools Global, like the international. It's not letting me change my tab. There it is. EcoSchools.global have, their structure isn't quite the same. They have 12 themes instead of 10. Interestingly, climate change there is a theme in itself, but they do have a whole set of lesson plans for teachers. But what we're producing from Suntrap side of things, and Martin, I've actually put a link to those scenarios you produced before. They won't be in everyone, but they were perfect for this transport example. Is to create something where there's a debate, which can happen outside the classroom, whether you've, and this was through a conversation with a teacher about bringing it, the SMSC frameworks and linking that to EcoSchools. Some schools folk do work through the global goals and find those links useful. And then to have some lesson plan ideas and signpost towards what I believe are quality lesson plans, because there's a lot out there. And then within each resource, it'd actually be a kind of campaign action type approach. So this one's a particular campaign about clean air in schools, but like the food waste one might have something about food waste reduction and composting. So the waste one could have a food waste one, or even an electronics waste campaign, of which there's a growing number of opportunities for schools to like recycle e-waste and batteries, etc. So the idea is to try and create something quite simple for each topic, but hopefully something that a teacher running an eco team that says, right, we want to look at biodiversity, this would be an option, something they can go to and get a few ideas. But I mean, this is a chance really to hear from you what resources or signposting or support would be most useful, do you think, for your schools or college?
The first thing that sort of jumped out for me would be this be quite nice, because we have a scheduled kind of form time curriculum, as it were. So I think this will be something nice, particularly like the idea around the debates and the idea of like climate poverty and things like that would be a nice thing, that they don't just only get to talk about it in science. So I think like doing, and form times, I don't know about anywhere else, but like ours are generally like 20-25 minutes. So it's a nice opportunity for like a quick video, good discussion, and then ideas that we can take forward with that.
I would totally agree with that. Yeah, same sort of thing would go down well with our students. They're mostly A-level, BTEC, level 2 and level 3 students, and I think debating climate related or sustainability related issues in tutor group situation would be ideal.
So with in mind, like, what's the most helpful thing to provide for teachers that are very busy and maybe don't know a huge amount about some of these subjects, is just giving a debate topic and then saying, like, students are meant to research the arguments, or would it be useful to provide some like videos, newspaper article, a few different things?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd say a video, and then an opportunity for the form to discuss it. Like, because it could be that, like, we can like make it suitable for our form groups and things like that, but just like the range of ideas that could be used and some of the resources there, then we could always like fine tune this is a topic of debate for this classroom. These are some of the pros and cons that might be brought up. So we can always do that as a school, but just like the kind of ideas on where to go and how, like, what sort of topics that could be debated would be great, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if the other schools use Votes for Schools. Do you use Votes for Schools? It's a program. So each week they send out a topic which students debate, and it's you can either have it in an hour format or a 20-minute format. And it's really good. And we use it in our form time program. We use the 20-minute format, and it's very much like that. There's a big question. It's not necessarily always on sustainability. It's on current affairs. It's kind of a hard-hitting question. There's some videos. They kind of put one side, put the other side, encourages debate, and then the students vote which way they go. But that format where it's, our staff are, so rushed off their feet. We need to give them something that they can deliver very quickly and easily, but get the outcomes that we expect. So it's that kind of something there that's very quick and easy that can be emailed out at the beginning of the week and for them to use. And like you say, you can adapt it then given the year group or whoever you're working with.
Paul, is there like a database of topics on there that you can pick from, or
Votes for schools?
Yeah.
No, they send one out each week.
Oh, okay, all right.
And it's very topical. I can't remember what this week's one was. I'll have a look now quickly.
Yes, I recall now South Grove School telling me about this, and I didn't follow it up, so I'll look into it.
I mean, votes for schools, yeah, it's very different, but that format that they use. Where is it?
Yeah, because I guess a question very much tied to this was that both Emily and I and Carrots and Trap, we get all sorts of great resources, opportunities for students and teachers appear in our inboxes all the time, and wondering like how is best to share that. In some ways, because it's quite speedy, almost like a WhatsApp group would be the way just to send things out. But I do not propose creating a WhatsApp group for the teachers in the borough. It would be a nightmare. But I also know like putting together an email monthly, things get out of date before a month goes, it takes ages. One idea is at the moment to do like a Monday morning, fortnightly Monday bulletin that just sort of lists CPD, like a new great resource that's come out about air pollution, and potentially a debate topic could also be something that's included there with like for primary, secondary, sixth form, here's 3 suitable videos or something. I know it's hard to know how much effort to put into something like a fortnightly bulletin. Because like how many people will take it up? Does it just end up clogging up inboxes? I mean, do you think from your school if there was a fortnightly debate suggestion and like here's something? Because I mean, we get some great offers like UN COP youth programs that 16 plus can sign up to. I really want students to know about that, but Paul, you.
I was just going to say maybe monthly, because I think you can keep most things relevant and within a month. So we haven't got too many, but then there's a bank of things that you could use within that month, and you could use them as much as you needed. Might be useful, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's something we're just exploring the best way of doing that at the moment. So I mean, in terms of EcoSchools, as none of your schools have signed up at the moment, but clearly at quite different phases, do you think having myself or potentially Emily coming in and doing a session, would you want it to be with just an eco group or a whole class or with teachers? I'm trying to get, and also just email me if this is something that you want to take up as an offer and we can make a suitable date, because I'm
Yeah, because I think in terms of the school year, I'd say probably the best time for us would be once, like towards the end of the year, to like set it up next for the academic year, so that when the year 11s and year 13s go for their study leave and things, we do have a bit more time. So I think sort of from like that last half term, I think it would be a nice time, so that from September we can just say, right, this is what we're doing, this is all running, but all the preparation has kind of been done and dusted. So I think that'll be when we'd look at setting it up to enroll for September.
Great, but yeah, get the wheels in motion in summer term.
Yeah.
So you then sort of had a bit of a think about who's going to be involved, what the structure is going to be. Yeah.
Similar, really. I mean, what I'm going to do next is in this meeting with our sort of eco committee and the principal, I'm going to sort of feedback on the EcoSchool program to the group, and then following on from that, if they give the go ahead, then yeah, some sort of meeting in the summer term would be about perfect timing, I think, to get started on it for next academic year. And I noticed that the first two steps were form an eco committee and have an environmental review. So can you sort of bank up these steps if you've done them in the past, or or if they've already been done?
Well, I think it's the students that need to be carrying out the review.
Okay, so an independent
yeah, and
the environmental review wouldn't count towards that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that can be from a sort of an early years walking around counting which lights are on and off, to students having a meeting with the school like business manager about procurement and learning about where they buy certain goods from, and is the paper forestry, FSC, Forest Stewardship Council, that sort of thing, and like so and that's part of the review, and then they decide which topics they think they can make the most significant change on. But also it's the area where hopefully they can find out what is it that they're passionate about, what is it that other students are passionate about, because the sort of school grounds and biodiversity ones very much overlap. And if you've got, well, even if you haven't got a lot of space, it's then more of a sort of creative challenge. How do we make the school more biodiverse? How do we create like a peaceful harmony garden, which is sort of projects some schools have done on with low budget? Do we fundraise and get some budget to make a kind of some raised beds, or depends sort of how ambitious they are as a group and how much ownership they can have over the project. And really sort of the older the students, the more ownership you want to be able to give them. But yeah, happy to sort of get back in touch maybe at the end of sort of the next half term, try and get something in the diary for summer term, certainly. Oh, the other thing I wanted to add what's in my head, I don't know if any of you have heard of the Eco Show Home on Greenleaf Road in Walthamstow. It's a retrofit terraced house that's got a air source heat pump. They've done sort of different forms of insulation to sort of keep the energy use down. So I've only visited today, but it's as an option, but to organise school visits for secondary school students, which I'd lead with somebody from the property and something team. I've forgotten the name of the team now. Kerry. They're hoping to be renting it out after the summer, so it's only going to open as a show home, probably until June or July. But if you had students maybe from your environmental science course or from other, I think it would suit sixth form students more, but maybe ones that are sort of interested in architecture or design or sort of built environment, geography type things.
Do we just email you? Do we just email you to book, Poppy?
Yeah. That's something I need to look, sort of haven't actually even started structuring yet, but being here today, they're really keen to get as many residents and younger people visiting as well, so they can see what they can do to a normal Victorian terraced house.
That's perfect for our BTEC level 3s actually, so I'll get in touch with you about that.
Yeah, so sort of trying to make best of local opportunities as well. Cool, it's just hit 5 o'clock. I can stay on a bit. If you've got any questions, please let me know, or once you've had time to digest a bit more about EcoSchools programme. Or if you're like, well, actually, we're already doing this other great programme. It doesn't have to be EcoSchools. I'm very happy to come in and give a bit of support or like run a session on a specific topic if it's something I've got some expertise in and you need a bit of help with. Paul?
I was just going to say, I've been in contact. We, as a school, and it came through the business manager, we were working with a company called Global Action Plan.org.uk. So we're doing air quality surveys in the school. So we've had air quality monitors in the school. And as part of that project, he's offered to come in and do a session for our students, because we haven't been able to get the green team up and running yet. I put him on hold, but he actually by chance emailed me today to say that he would still be keen to come in and do a workshop. I'd be quite happy to offer that out to other schools if they wanted to join the workshop, if he was happy with it, which I'm sure he would be. So that's something I could update the group about, specifically looking at air quality.
That sounds really. So, is that as a lesson to a specific year
Well,
group,
I think he
or
was
is
going
that
to deliver a session. Again, we're in sort of embryo stages. He's kind of like, I've got this expertise. Let me know what I can do, but I'm quite happy to come in and deliver something or do an activity workshop with students.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, feel free to link me up. I think that's the tapas research project,
right, that
Fiona McMillan from school finance was overseeing, because I know that Kelmscott School have just had the results from their air quality surveys through as well. I didn't realise they're working with Global Action Plan on teaching content. I thought it was just the.
Yeah, well, I was put in touch through our business manager, who and I've been in communication. It's a guy called Joe Harrison, who I've kind of put him on hold at the minute, until we hopefully after half term we can get things up and running.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, if it feels useful to bring me into a conversation about that and to try and get those workshops into other schools, do let me know. And I know someone from GAP, is a governor at Coppermill for a meeting next week, because they're meant to be one of our pilot schools that are going to be looking at the governance side of climate action plans. So there might be some nice joining the dots there.
I guess that's another good thing, that this monthly bulletin could actually just be sharing like news and offers from like between other teachers and schools as well. I suppose it can be a sort of a bit of a two-way thing. I was going to say I can also share any opportunities there specifically for the students that we're sort of running as well, like the panels, and the leadership program will be something that's obviously just piloting with a couple of schools, but that's something that can maybe be offered next year to sort of eco teams as well, if students want to sort of delve a bit deeper.
Yeah.
Sorry, I may have missed it at the start, Poppy. Will you share this presentation, the first presentation you had?
Yeah.
Will you email that to us?
Yeah, I will email the slides, some sort of recommended resources if people want to get going, and hopefully a video of this as well tomorrow morning. I mean, there are just so many resources out there. So if at any point in say to the teachers at school, if you find yourself stuck on like a wormhole of looking for stuff, which I find myself down very often, but I've done a lot of that wormholing for you. Let me know. But Global Action Plan I do really recommend their resources. Cool. Well, if there's not any more questions, now I've got to go and nudge the people that didn't turn up with slides and and enthusiasm. Cool, but thanks for coming along.
Thanks, Poppy. Thank you.
Cheers. Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
bye.
Thanks.